Hello and welcome to the Queensborough Community College Academic Literacy Online Tutoring videos. This video will be discussing planning and brainstorming. I see a lot of students who come into the Writing Center and we give the student an article and we ask them to read the article, to then write a summary about the article, and then, of course, a development, the rest of their essay. However, 9 times out of 10, what a student will end up doing is they will read the article and then immediately start writing their summary. So they will have skipped this most important step, planning and brainstorming. Those other topics I've already mentioned will be covered separately in other videos. So let's begin with this. This is planning and brainstorming. Neat is good, messy is better. It's an important lesson to learn here, which we'll get into. So, of course, messy is better. We're talking about annotation, right? So, what is annotation? Annotation means to add a critical or explanatory note to a text. It's really that simple. It's pretty much anything that you want to write down on the article. Now, what does it help you do? It helps you to understand and also to digest. We talk about the idea of digesting. You might have heard a few tutors use this word. Basically, what we're trying to get you to do is to read the information that is in the article. However, it's also very important that you bring in your own personal interpretation to that text, right? So basically, no two students are going to be reading the same article in the same way. Now, there is, of course, let's be reasonable, a correct interpretation and an incorrect interpretation. However, there's quite a bit of leeway, quite a bit of free space for maybe you yourself to believe that maybe one area of the article is a little bit more important than your classmate might. Now, also, annotation helps you to boil down larger sections of information into smaller, simpler, more manageable points. These articles can be 4 or 5 paragraphs long. It's very easy maybe to get a little bit intimidated, especially when you're being timed. It can be a little bit daunting. So therefore, what annotation does is kind of breaks it down into these simpler points, these easier little points. It's called actually chunking. Our next point is that annotation, how you do annotation is you basically just underline important words or phrases. You can draw arrows, you can highlight, you can draw pictures on the page. It's really up to you. There's no right way or wrong way to do this. Some students, now you might already have your own way of doing this, and in which case that's great. You're a little bit ahead of the game. Some of you, though, you still might want to take a look at this. So let's move on now. We're going to start looking at an article. And there's whatever works for you. An article called An Improvement or Just Another Distraction. This is by Archibald Schwartz. It's an interesting name. So I'm going to read this with you. You're going to read along with me. And then we're going to kind of break down the article. So, without further ado, An Improvement or Just Another Distraction by Archibald Schwartz. Last week in Palo Alto, California, Apple revealed the details of its next big thing, the Apple Watch. This small electronic device attaches to your wrist, much like the watch your parents may wear. However, it does much more than anyone from that era might have dreamed possible from such a tiny package. The Apple Watch functions much like a simpler version of your smartphone. So you can send brief text messages, you can answer calls, check the weather, and track your exercise using the watch's advanced motion sensors. Apple has promised its smartwatch will act somewhat as a social emollient. No longer will we have to rudely take out our phones to answer a text or stare down at a screen while enjoying dinner with a loved one. Because the watch is so accessible on our wrists, they say, these daily and sometimes necessary distractions can be addressed more quickly and efficiently than we could with our phones. My concern, though, is that the Apple Watch is just another distraction. Computers used to only sit on our desks. Then we could carry them around with the advent of portable laptops. They then grew more portable and personal still with the arrival of smartphones and tablets, which we could nestle into a coffee shop with for hours on end. Now, technology is making a big move onto our bodies, and no one is really questioning it, which is worrisome. A smart business like Apple is out to make money and knows not to presume any parts of our body are there for the taking on a first date. Therefore, it has slowly and insidiously worked its way there in an appealing, shiny steel package. But what are we losing in making something already so easy, using technology as a distraction or escape, even easier? Haven't the bonds between people already been strained to the point of isolated togetherness? Will the Apple Watch be a lesson in manners that we so desperately need? Or will it be just another toy to delight and remove us from our own lives? I don't know. Okay. Feel free at this point to pause the video and to reread any section, or you can, the beauty of video is that you can go back, you can play this again for yourself. It's up to you. But we're going to move on. Now, one thing students have a tendency to overlook is the title. And the title here is an improvement or just another distraction. Now we're going to zoom in here, and you will notice that the question mark there has been circled. So in other words, the title of this passage is a question, right? Now, oftentimes, the main idea can be found in the title. It might not be spelled out for you, directly. However, the title is always a very good indication of generally what the article is going to be about. So in this case, maybe the main idea is a question. That's something that we'll find out later on in this video. So we're going to be talking about annotating. We're going to be annotating this article together. All right. Now, maybe we could read this first paragraph again very briefly. Last week in Palo Alto, California, Apple revealed the details of its next big thing, the Apple Watch. Okay, so that first sentence is last week in Palo Alto, California, right? There's a little bit of details. It's kind of just like an introductory sentence, not a big deal. So what happened there in Palo Alto, California? What is this Apple Watch? We're about to find out. This small electronic device attaches to your wrist, much like the watch your parents may wear. However, it does much more than anyone from that era might have dreamed possible. So it does more than a watch that your parents probably have had. It's still kind of building tension. It's still kind of like asking us questions that have not been answered yet until we get to this next sentence. The Apple Watch functions much like a simpler version of your smartphone. It can send brief text messages, calls, check the weather, and so on. So this sentence here, you can see my pointer here. The Apple Watch functions much like a simpler version of your smartphone. That's kind of like the main idea of this particular paragraph. These little points here, text messages, calls, track your exercise, advanced motion sensors, these are details, these are necessary details. However, it is still this sentence here. The Apple Watch functions much like a simpler version of your smartphone. It's kind of the most important piece of that paragraph. You might even want to be tuning out all of this other information here, as it's not completely necessary to your understanding. Moving on. Apple has promised its smartwatch will act somewhat as a social emollient. We have this word emollient here. You may want to pause the video and look this up. Okay, this next area here, because the watch is so accessible on our wrists, they say, these daily and sometimes necessary distractions can be addressed more quickly and efficiently than we could with our phones. So, essentially, that's what the smartwatch does. That's why we are seeing them now in the marketplace. Because cell phones had created a little bit of a social faux pas, where you might go out to a restaurant in the city and see two people maybe eating dinner together and just kind of not really paying attention to each other and just looking at their phones. You probably see this on the bus every day, between friends, even in school, unfortunately, right? So these watches are therefore designed for the user to deal with these distractions more quickly and efficiently, right? Quickly and efficiently. This next sentence here, my concern, though, is that the Apple Watch is just another distraction. So here we have my concern. So that's the author's concern, is that the watch is just another distraction. Now, this is the last sentence of the second paragraph. It makes me feel like this is a transition into the third paragraph. So let's move on. The third paragraph begins, computers used to only sit on our desks. Then we could carry them around when laptops came available. Then they grew even more portable with smartphones and tablets. And of course, now this technology is making a big move onto our bodies, and no one is really questioning it, right? So the first 1-2 sentences here, the first 3 or 4 lines, are discussing the past, again, much like the first paragraph, right? Kind of like introduction and leading into this next point. Now the technology is making a move onto our wrists, onto our bodies, and no one is really questioning it. A smart business like Apple, so now we have details about the company. A smart business like Apple is out to make money, etc., etc. Last sentence of that paragraph. Therefore, it has insidiously worked its way there in an appealing, shiny steel package. Okay, so here we see this paragraph is really answering the question why, right? Or how, rather. Therefore, it has slowly and insidiously worked its way there in an appealing, shiny steel package. So really, these paragraphs are asking us questions, right? Or they're answering questions. So this paragraph seems to be answering the question, how? Exactly. How is this technology affecting us? How is this technology a problem, potentially? Right? We need to think of paragraphs as answering necessary questions about the main idea. Now, if the main idea is an improvement or just another distraction, question mark, the first paragraph, what, right here, we need to know what we're talking about here. And in this case, it's smartwatches or some kind of new technology, right? Now, why? Maybe we'd be asking, why is this an issue? Why do we have these smartwatches? These are all questions we need answered about the main idea in order to assemble and in order to organize a successful summary. This third paragraph, as we said, discusses how. This last paragraph, but what are we losing in making something already so easy, using technology as a distraction, even easier? So we're making this technology, we're making these text messages and phone calls and little bleeps and bloops. We're making these even more available to us. They're right on our wrist now. And the author is making a persuasion. We see a lot of questions, and we see in this last little piece here, I don't know. I don't know. I, meaning the author, is referring to himself. This is pretty much how you want your articles to look once you've read them once for yourself, maybe without really writing anything. The first read through should really be you are just reading the information. Maybe skim it a little bit to get an idea what it's talking about. The second time you read through, you really want to be taking notes like this for yourself. As we said at the beginning, in order to kind of small chunk it, right? So these are small chunks of information. The first paragraph is discussing technology and fitness. Why discusses how the watch improves the social aspect. How is a big move onto our wrists, onto our bodies, which involves money from Apple, the company. And the persuasion is, will the watch only make things worse? Now, when let's say I were to take this test, I would rather see this on my desk than something that looks like, and have these available to me, right? And be using pens, highlighters, things like that, than a blank paper. Now, I hope you got a lot out of this video. We will be discussing this in further episodes. Again, please feel free to go to the beginning of this video, to rewatch it, maybe to read over certain parts of it. There should be an assignment below this video, below the link. We still need to figure that piece out, but there should be an assignment for you there, allowing you to basically annotate your own article, okay? And you're going to be submitting that through Blackboard, and we have tutors on hand, ready, willing, and able to review your work, to give you pointers, and of course, there are always tutors in the Academic Literacy Learning Center, which is in Humanities Building H237. It's on the second floor, right next to the computer lab. Thank you for watching. Thanks, and I'll be seeing you.